It has been a year since the gruesome murder took place in the town.
It's been a year! Why do you still not know what happened?
Many questioned her detective skills as her only son committed suicide.
That's
You're a bitch, you know that? No wonder your son fucking killed himself.
And her life as divorced single mother was falling apart.
Get away from me, man!
While on her knees, her last plan to bait the killer shocked the entire America on that particular day.
Kevin, open the door!
Welcome back to Warner Series. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. The story takes place in 2020 in a small, remote town in the eastern United States. Life there is simple, quiet, and mostly uneventful. The residents are used to living a peaceful existence, far from the chaos of larger cities. But everything changes one day when a young woman's body is found by the river, stark naked and showing signs of brutal violence.
She's been here a while.
Her death sends shockwaves through the town and reveals a much darker side of the seemingly innocent place.
It's been a year! Why do you still not know what happened?
The murder opens a can of worms that forces Mayor Sheehan, our main character, to confront not only the case, but also her own painful past. When Mare arrives at the crime scene, she immediately notices the signs of severe trauma on the victim's body, including a head wound and a severed finger.
Face to face. Is a death suspicious? Send out the on-call and me check right away.
Which seems to suggest gunshot involvement. But despite the obvious signs of foul play, there are no other clues to lead Mare to the killer. It's a tough start, but Mare doesn't back down.
Everybody, put your gloves on. Do a grid search.
She knows that in a town like hers, everyone knows each other, and finding the killer might take more than just police work. It might take knowing the people and their secrets. Mare goes straight to the victim's family, where she meets Aaron's father, Kenny.
Hey, Mare.
Hey, Kenny.
When he hears the news, he breaks down in tears, a sight that doesn't make Mare's job any easier.
Is it Aaron? Stay away from me.
Get away from me, man!
She's seen these people struggle for years, and it's heartbreaking to witness. But Mare is a professional. She pushes her emotions aside, remembering the task at hand, to bring the killer to justice.
No, fucking kill! Calm down!
After some comforting words, Kenny starts to speak, and Mare learns that Aaron had a tough life. She had a child out of wedlock, and the baby's father, Dylan, was a deadbeat who abandoned them the moment Aaron gave birth.
Just hand him over because I gotta go.
He didn't help with the baby's needs, and when Aaron asked for money, Dylan threatened to sue her instead. It's a tough story, and it doesn't paint a pretty picture of Aaron's life. At one point, Aaron found some comfort online. She started chatting with someone who encouraged her and made her feel like maybe things could be better. They decided to meet up, but when Aaron showed up at the meeting spot, she was shocked to find out that her online friend wasn't a stranger, but her ex-boyfriend, Dylan, and his new girlfriend.
What's going on? Oh, yeah, there's no Brendan.
They had tricked her into meeting them, and once she was there, they mocked her and even started to abuse her.
I told you I was gonna get your ugly ass.
The situation got physical, but luckily Mare's daughter stepped in and stopped the altercation before it got worse. Aaron, hurt and embarrassed, left quietly. It was clear that this wasn't just a chance encounter. It was a part of the ongoing cruelty Aaron had suffered from Dylan and others in her life.
Who did this?
Kenny, Aaron's father, quickly points the finger at Dylan, and Mare suspects him too. She wastes no time and brings Dylan in for questioning, but when he shows up at the station, he denies having anything to do with the murder.
Did you have anything to do with Aaron's death last night?
No, because you can ask my mom. Kill Aaron, you're not gonna put that shit on me. I didn't kill her.
He's agitated, defensive, and seems more interested in getting out of there than answering Mare's questions. After an intense back and forth,
You said that I could leave whenever I wanted to, right?
Yeah, this
Mare has no choice but to let him go, as she doesn't have enough evidence to keep him in custody. With Dylan out of the picture for now, Mare turns to the next lead.
Get out of Creighton Creek late last night.
A video surfaces showing Dylan's girlfriend bullying Aaron. The footage is disturbing, and Mare recognizes the girl immediately. What shocks her even more is that her own daughter appears in the video too.
What about her? Who's that?
That's your woman.
Mare tries to call her daughter, but there's no answer. Frustrated, Mare heads to the diner where Dylan's girlfriend works. Without hesitation, she drags the girl back to the station for questioning.
What the hell are you talking about?
You're being placed.
But when the interrogation begins, the girl remains silent, refusing to talk and demanding a lawyer.
Oh, you're a lawyer. I said I want a fucking lawyer.
Mare is not prepared for the news the girl delivers. The girl hints that Aaron's death was tied to something deeper, and the mention of Mare's son's suicide sends Mare into an emotional tailspin.
That's
You're a bitch, you know that? No wonder your son fucking killed himself.
The pain of losing her son, compounded with the pressure of solving Aaron's murder, weighs heavily on Mare. After a long night at the police station, she heads home, only to be reminded of her broken personal life. Her husband had divorced her after their son's death, and now she's alone, trapped in a spiral of grief and guilt. But in the midst of all this, Mare recalls something that could help. Her ex-husband, Frank, was Aaron's teacher. Maybe he knew something that could shed light on the case. When Mare visits Frank, they talk about their recent lives. Frank mentions that he had taught Aaron a couple of years ago, and that he had a feeling things weren't good at home. Frank's comments seem odd, but Mare doesn't press him further. Instead, she keeps working on the case, interviewing anyone who might know something. Days pass, and still there's no breakthrough. Mare grows more and more frustrated as she interviews dozens of people without finding anything concrete. It isn't until one of Aaron's former friends speaks up that Mare learns something crucial. The friend reveals that Aaron had been hiding a secret. Dylan wasn't the real father of her child. She believes it might actually be Frank, Mare's ex-husband. This revelation shakes Mare to her core. All the things Frank had said to her the day before suddenly seem like lies, and Mare can't ignore the growing suspicion that he was involved in Aaron's death. She confronts Frank again, but he denies everything, even though Mare can tell he's lying. The next major clue comes when Mare learns that Aaron made a phone call to a church deacon just before her death. This leads Mare to the deacon's house, where he admits to taking the call, but insists it was just a friendly conversation. He also claims he was miles away from the scene at the time of Aaron's murder, with a solid alibi to back him up. But Mare is still suspicious, and she can't shake the feeling that there's more to this story than the deacon is letting on. Finally, the discovery of Aaron's severed finger miles away from the crime scene leads Mare to conclude that Aaron might have tried to stop a bullet during the attack, losing her finger in the process. This leads to a chilling theory. Kenny, Aaron's father, might have killed her in a fit of rage over the burden of supporting his daughter and her child. The case seems more complicated than ever, with suspects everywhere and no clear answers. Mare is left grappling with this uncertainty, all while dealing with the turmoil in her personal life. As the case drags on, Mare's own life becomes increasingly messy. She faces a court case that could result in her losing custody of her grandson, who has become her only emotional support. At the same time, her own mental health is taking a toll, and she finds herself questioning everything: her work, her relationships, and her ability to handle it all. When she steals evidence to frame her daughter-in-law in a desperate attempt to keep custody of her grandson, Mare's world unravels even further. The police chief suspends her, taking away her badge and service weapon, but she is allowed to keep her grandson. Yet, the question remains, what about Aaron's murder? With the case still unsolved and her own life hanging by a thread, Mare refuses to give up. She digs deeper into the case, trying to make sense of the puzzle pieces. And just when she thought things couldn't get worse, another young girl goes missing in town, adding yet another layer of mystery to the already complex investigation. Now, Mare must find the strength to solve the case, all while navigating her own personal struggles in a town that's anything but peaceful. As Mare dug deeper into Aaron's past, she uncovered a web of secrets, lies, and connections that nobody had anticipated. Mare's first major breakthrough came when she tracked down Aaron's best friend. After some tough questioning, the friend finally confessed that Aaron had briefly considered turning to prostitution to raise money for her child's surgery. However, Aaron couldn't bring herself to follow through with it. She was kind-hearted, and that line was one she could never cross. This information narrowed the list of suspects and gave Mare a new direction to focus on. It became clear that Aaron had been struggling in ways no one had known. With this new lead, Mare quickly sought out Tammy, a woman well known in the local escort industry. Mare hoped Tammy could help her gather information about any suspicious activities or people within the circle that might be connected to Aaron's death. Tammy brought along Ellie, another escort who had her own harrowing story. Ellie revealed that she had encountered a man who had tried to strangle her during one of her appointments. Thankfully, she fought back and managed to escape, but she still remembered key details about the man, including that he was white, smoked, and had a certain type of vehicle. With this new information, Colin, Mayor's colleague, immediately called a contact to investigate the vehicle. However, it was soon clear that there were far too many similar vehicles in the area to make an immediate connection, and it would take at least 2 hours to get any solid information. While waiting for updates, Mayor and Colin took a walk by the river to clear their heads. During their conversation, Mayor apologized to Colin for her behavior at the bar and admitted that she couldn't give him what he wanted. Colin, however, remained calm and didn't respond directly to her words. Instead, he changed the subject, making it clear that he wasn't upset, but rather focused on the case. As they continued walking, Colin received a call from his colleague. The two quickly set off to visit several places, hoping to track down new leads. They came across a particularly noisy establishment, and when they asked the owner to turn down the volume, Mayor noticed something that immediately caught her attention: the brand of cigarettes that Ellie had mentioned. This small detail raised alarms, and they quickly realized that the owner of this place could very well be connected to the murders. The tension was thick as the two detectives continued their questioning. Little did they know that inside the bar, Katie, another missing girl, was being held captive, along with Missy. As Mayor and Colin continued their investigation, the situation inside the bar grew more chaotic. The girls, trapped and desperate, were trying to send a distress signal by banging on pipes. The owner tried to maintain an air of calm, but inside, he was on edge, knowing that the detectives were getting closer to the truth. Just as they were deep in conversation with the owner, shots rang out. Colin was struck and fell to the ground, gravely wounded, while Mayor narrowly escaped but was also shot in the process. The stakes were now higher than ever. Mayor, wounded but determined, rushed upstairs, where she found the girls trapped behind a locked door. She signaled for them to remain silent and wait for backup, but the situation was rapidly deteriorating. In the midst of the chaos, Mayor tried to contact her colleagues, but before she could find a place to hide and stall for time, the owner discovered her hiding spot. He fired several shots through the door, but by the time he opened it, Mayor was nowhere to be found. In a quick and decisive move, Mayor ambushed the owner, knocking him down. She grabbed a handgun from beside Colin's lifeless body and made her way downstairs. By this time, the backup police arrived, but it was too late to save Colin, who had already passed away. The missing girls were rescued, but the cost was high. Colin was posthumously awarded a Medal of Valor for his bravery, though it did little to ease the grief of those who had worked with him. A few days later, Mayor found herself at Colin's home. She wanted to visit his mother, but when she arrived, things took a painful turn. Colin's mother, overwhelmed with grief and anger, slapped Mayor several times, blaming her for involving Colin in the investigation that ultimately cost him his life. Mayor, devastated, left in tears and returned home, where she finally allowed herself to break down in her mother's arms. The weight of everything was too much to carry alone. But just when Mayor thought she could finally take a moment to grieve, the police chief showed up. He informed her that the investigation into Aaron's death was far from over. In fact, the two kidnapping cases, the ones involving Katie and Missy, had no connection to Aaron's murder, meaning the real killer was still out there. Despite everything Mayor had been through, the chief reinstated her and urged her to continue the investigation, now with a renewed sense of purpose. Mayor was to carry on Colin's legacy and bring Aaron's true killer to justice. Just as Mayor was about to dive back into the case, she was approached by a local resident named Beth Honland. Beth was frantic because her brother, Kevin Carroll, had been missing for several days. His room had been locked, and Beth was too afraid to go inside and check on him herself. She begged Mayor to help. Mayor went to Kevin's room and, after some investigation, discovered that Kevin had died from a drug overdose. In the room, she noticed a memorial t-shirt from the Ross family with a string of numbers and a date on it. This caught Mayor's attention because Aaron's belongings had contained a necklace with the same string of numbers. The connection between the memorial t-shirt and Aaron's death was enough to make Mayor suspicious. She went straight to Aaron's father, Kenny, to inquire about the shirt. Kenny explained that the t-shirt came from a Ross family gathering, where Aaron's family had attended with the Ross brothers. One of the brothers, Billy, had been with them the entire time, while the other brother, the older one, was married to Mayor's best friend, Lori. This new lead prompted Mayor to investigate further. She quickly traced the t-shirt to a store and discovered that the buyer was none other than a Ross family member. As Mayor followed the trail, the two Ross brothers began to grow anxious. They knew that Mayor was on to something and started to worry about the consequences of their actions. The elder brother John Ross urged his younger brother Billy to turn himself in for the murder. Billy was a failure by most standards, homeless, struggling, and considered by many to be completely useless. He couldn't face what had happened and didn't have the courage to come clean. John, despite knowing the truth, had been trying to shield his brother from facing the consequences. Time passed, and the situation grew more tense. The next day, John turned to his wife, Lori, asking her to help keep the secret from Mare, hoping that Billy could have a chance to avoid the consequences. However, the next day, Billy, after wrestling with his own conscience, finally made up his mind. "I'm ready," he confessed. John felt a complicated mix of emotions. Wanting to give his brother one last bit of peace, he suggested they go fishing at their father's old cabin. It would be a final moment of calm before the storm hit. But as Billy prepared his gear, he noticed a gun in his brother's toolbox. The sight of it startled him, but he quickly pushed aside his unease, pretending not to notice and getting into the car without protest. Meanwhile, Mare, still working tirelessly on the case, rushed over to Lori's house. She had so many questions, particularly about the two brothers and Aaron. Lori hesitated for a long time, but eventually, she broke down and confessed the truth. Billy hadn't been the one who killed Aaron. It was John. Aaron had been planning to expose their secret affair, and when she threatened to reveal it, John panicked. As her cousin, this affair could not be known to the world. In a moment of desperation, John killed Aaron to keep the truth from coming out. After hearing this, Mare quickly drove off to find John, informing the chief along the way. Mare's journey led her to the fishing cabin where the two brothers were by the river. The mood was tense, the silence between them speaking volumes. John kept glancing at Billy, his face full of conflicting emotions. Just as Mare was about to reach the cabin, Aaron's best friend arrived at the police station with her mother. She handed the chief a photograph, and when he saw it, his face changed. It was a shocking photo, an intimate picture of John and Aaron. Mare was racing against time, and when she heard the news, she knew she had to act fast. The real killer wasn't Billy, as everyone had believed. It was John all along. But the twist didn't stop there. At the cabin, John finally took the gun from the toolbox. Billy turned around and, sensing something was wrong, stared at his brother. But instead of running, Billy almost seemed to challenge John. He was so consumed by despair and self-loathing, knowing that he had been a failure in life, that he saw no reason to keep living. In his mind, taking the blame and even dying for his brother seemed like the only way to redeem himself. John didn't hesitate. He was prepared to end it all. But before anything could happen, Mare arrived just in time to intervene. With the help of her colleagues, they were able to subdue John and get the truth out of him. John admitted that he killed Aaron because she had demanded money for her child's surgery, something he couldn't afford. When she threatened to expose their affair, he panicked and decided there was no other way out. After months of investigation, Aaron's case was finally closed. John was arrested, and before he left, he made one last request to his wife, Lori. He wanted her to adopt Aaron's child. This request seemed almost cruel to Lori, but after much consideration, she had no other choice. John had placed her in an impossible position, and now, even with his arrest, the consequences of his actions were still haunting her. Life in the small town seemed to return to normal, but Mare, still feeling unsettled by the case, decided to re-watch John's interrogation video. As she watched, she noticed something odd. Despite being the killer, John couldn't clearly describe the murder weapon. His words and actions seemed deliberate, as if he was hiding something. This detail, small but significant, made Mare uneasy. She didn't have time to investigate further at that moment, but the nagging feeling that something wasn't right wouldn't leave her. Days passed, and then a man named Mr. Carroll came to see Mare. He was a retired police officer, and he had been given a commemorative service weapon when he retired. However, recently, the gun had gone missing, and inexplicably it had reappeared. Mr. Carroll wasn't sure if his mind was playing tricks on him due to his age, but something about the situation felt off. When Mare heard this, an alarm went off in her mind. She rushed to the evidence locker and checked the firearms. It was the same model that had been identified by the ballistics expert, and disturbingly, 2 bullets were missing from it. The only person who had been in the evidence locker other than Mr. Carroll was John's son, Ryan Ross. Mare's suspicions grew. She quickly reviewed the surveillance footage from the night Aaron was killed. Sure enough, Ryan had been in the evidence locker, taking the gun. A terrifying thought began to form in Mare's mind. She knew she had to act quickly. Mare went to Ryan's school, but as soon as he saw her, he panicked and ran straight home. Mare followed him, her steps heavy with the weight of the truth she was about to uncover. When she arrived at Lori's house, she saw the devastation written on her best friend's face. Lori couldn't do anything but watch as Mare took her son away. Ryan had no choice but to confess everything. It turned out that Ryan had discovered his father's affair with Erin and, in a fit of anger, decided to confront her. He wanted to protect his family, but when he met with Erin, the situation quickly escalated. Ryan didn't intend to kill her. He just wanted to scare her into leaving his father alone. But when Erin lunged for the gun during their struggle, a shot went off, severing her finger. Panicking, Ryan shot Erin again, killing her. He then went to his father for help, and John, in an attempt to protect his son, decided to take the blame and cover up the murder. He had Billy help him dispose of the body. With Ryan's confession, the whole truth came out. Lori, devastated by everything that had happened, completely broke down. Her husband's affair, her son's murder, and the fact that her daughter had Down syndrome. It was all too much. She couldn't handle it anymore, and when she confronted Mare, she begged her to leave Ryan alone, claiming it was just an accident. Despite her best efforts, Mare couldn't reach Lori. Days passed with no word from her, and Mare, unable to sit still, finally decided to go to Lori's house. When she entered, she found her best friend broken, crying uncontrollably. Lori collapsed into Mare's arms, and Mare couldn't hold back her tears anymore. In the end, the small town, which had always been their home, had become a nightmare for everyone involved. What was supposed to be a place of peace and familiarity had become a place of deep, unrelenting pain. And that wraps up today's video. What a roller coaster of emotions and twists. It's always mind-blowing how the truth can come out after so much time, and how sometimes even the people closest to us are hiding their own secrets. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the latest updates. Drop your thoughts or any questions in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.